Smooth 98.1. Love music, love life. It is a money making Monday evening, and 5:15 p.m. is that time where we get into the marketplace. My name is Ayokunmi Kekiriakum. Great to be with you on this ride this evening, where we get to talk about issues that are making the rounds in the markets in Nigeria and, of course, all around the world as well. And this evening, we're talking about the outlook on Nigeria's industrial goods sector. Now, just to give you a backstory into this one. Vetiva Capital Management Limited has released a new report on Nigeria's industrial goods sector for the second half of 2024. Now, we're about to find out how well the sector will perform, how important it is to Nigeria's economy, and if any money can be made from investing in it. And joining me this evening to talk about this and so much more is Abigail Alabi. She's a sub-Saharan Africa industrial goods analyst with Vetiva Capital. Very good evening to you, Abigail. Great to have you on the
Good evening,
marketplace.
and thank you for having me. Good evening.
All right. For all our wonderful listeners out there, you can be a part of the marketplace as always by sending your messages into us on WhatsApp on 0809 440 981. 0809 440 981. You can also join us on the live stream out there on YouTube at Smooth 981 FM Lagos. All right, let's get right into the nitty gritty of what we have come to do this evening. So, Abigail, just to give us some clarity here, what makes up the industrial goods sector?
Okay, so the industrial goods sector in Nigeria is a very, very crucial and very important component of the economy, and it has or it's contains several subsectors. And so
Okay.
this sector primarily includes the construction sector, the cement sector, and manufacturing sector, and other related industries like the chemical industries, machineries, building materials, basically things that we're able to use to produce goods used in either industrial processes or construction activities. So basically, the sector is mainly driven by the demand for industrial or capital goods, and all of these are essential to the end users, which are the consumers.
All right. Thank you for that, should I say, segueing into what we're actually discussing this evening. Now, before we get into the second half of the year, how did the sector perform in the first 6 months of 2024? What did it look like up until this point?
Okay, so for the first half of the year, the industrial goods sector in Nigeria was showed mixed performance. So we saw that in the first quarter of the year, we saw that the cement industry and the real estate industry were among the top performers of that quarter, while we saw that this construction sector declined in the first quarter of the year. So as we saw that some sectors showed growth, while some other sectors showed faced several challenges during the first quarter of the year. So mainly the construction sector was like the only one that had like a major decline or some difficulties, and this is due to a decline in public sector spending in areas of infrastructure development, capital projects, and those are like the major things that affected or that happened in the first half of the year, majorly in the first quarter of the year.
Okay, just for a little bit of clarity, what are those sectors that look good in the first half of the year?
Okay, so the cement industry was one of the top players in the industry. The cement industry increased significantly, was among the best performers among the industry. And this was due to steady private sector activity in the construction sector. We saw a lot of real estate activity going on. And this was primarily
Mm,
driven by steady activities in the real estate sector, especially in the private and commercial real estate. So we have seen like a rising population, and that has caused an increase in demand for housing or real estate in general, especially residential and commercial. And also for the cement industry as well, we also saw that that was like the major level that affected both of them. However, for the construction industry, it declined significantly. The construction industry was among the worst performing industry for the first half of the year. And historically, the public sector is usually like the major driver of this sector. But in the first half of the year, we saw that this was not the actual case because we saw that despite the amount that was allocated in the first half of the year, or allocated last year for capital projects, we did not
okay.
see this have any material impact on what happened in the public sector and also in the construction sector. So we saw a lot of fiscal constraints happen in the first half of the year, and this affected the spending of the federal government's infrastructure projects. We also saw this also caused a delay in project execution, and also we saw like the rising input cost also affects the cost of building or the cost of infrastructure projects in the first half of the year. So all of these factors combined was like a major driver, or was the one that dominated the first half of the year. We saw a an impressive performance in the cement industry, a good performance in the real estate, and also we also saw like a different story in the construction sector, declining by about 2.14% in the first quarter of the year.
It is actually very interesting. We talk about construction, cement, and so on and so forth, but it all seems like these different sectors kind of go hand in hand. So you think that okay, if one would affect the other and so on and so forth, but it's looking like some actually did well, and some, like the construction sector, actually declined. I mean, how is that?
Okay, so like you said, the sectors are very, very much intertwined. For the cement industry, activity in the construction industry, also first of all, in this construction industry, the major drivers are the public sector, majorly, and also the private sector. They all drive the construction industry. And those two sectors combined also drive the cement industry because activity in the private sector drives cement demand. Activity in the public sector also drives cement demand. So using Julius Berger as a proxy, Julius Berger is like a major construction body or a major construction giant in the industry. So for Q1, their revenue from the public sector declined by about 3%. And you can see that this is in tandem with what happened in the first quarter of the year for the construction industry. So you can see like
Mm,
an alignment between what happens in the construction industry or what happens in the public sector and how that affects the um revenue for people in that industry and also how it affects the growth in that industry. The same is also can be said for the real estate industry as well. I mean, they are all intertwined. For the real estate
yes.
industry, we saw, like I said, a huge population growth, and as a result, definitely need to drive demand for housing. And since we saw that growth in that sector, we saw that also translate into higher cement demand for the cement players and also in Q1. So we can see that there's like a huge cycle. We can see that all three sectors are being very, very intertwined.
Definitely. Now let's still stick with the cement subsector, which is a very interesting one. Now let's first talk about higher cement prices, because that was like the talk of the town for quite a while. Earlier on this year, there was a lot of lamentation and so on and so forth. Now, how did that contribute to that particular sector, those high prices to start with?
Okay, so like you said, the cement sector is a key component of the industrial goods sector, and it has been very, very interesting over the last few quarters, over the last few months. And if you recall, in the first half of the year, we saw a surge in cement prices, and it was ranging from about 12,000 to 15,000 naira.
Okay.
This also was a significant factor to the sector's growth. However, this increase in price can also be attributed to, due to this increase in price can be attributed to rising production costs, including energy and also transportation expenses. But while these prices have potentially increased revenue for these cement players, has also raised concerns about the affordability of construction materials or building materials for people. And also, we're also seeing, or it is also raising concerns about the impact on the housing crisis that we have currently. So, as of last year, we saw that the housing deficit was about 28 million units, and the rising cost of these building materials, especially cement, because cement is like the major material used for building,
Right.
and the rising cost of these building materials would further, or it will definitely widen this gap or increase this deficit. So this higher selling price, I mean, it's good on for one side of the coin, but on the other side, it also affects affordability on the ends of the part of the consumers. While this may potentially increase revenue for players, it may also affect affordability for consumers and also cause like a devastating effect on the housing crisis that we currently have now.
Now, talking about the high prices, because the government actually said that it would intervene in the cement prices. Now, did they actually follow through as was said, or are we still where we are as at the beginning or earlier on in this year?
Um, I mean, it's a work in progress. Since the first surge in cement prices that we saw in Q1 or a few months ago, and the federal government has been engaging in series of conversations, meetings, negotiations with the cement producers to understand the reason behind this surge or this hike in cement prices and why they came to an agreement to reduce cement prices. We saw that cement prices were down to about 10,000 naira in some areas, but the federal government is still making strong efforts to ensure that cement prices are still very, very affordable for consumers. And just last week, there was a meeting that they had with the House of Reps and also cement players on the price of cement. So yes, the federal government is really making lots of effort in this regard to ensure that cement is much more affordable for consumers or for the end users.
Right. Now, Abigail, you talked about the huge housing deficit that we actually have. I think you mentioned about 28 million units or thereabouts, if my memory actually serves me correctly. Now, how key in all caps here is it that cement prices are brought down to a reasonable level in order to actually tackle that big problem that we have in the housing sector in Nigeria?
Okay, so like I said, we have housing debt of about 28 billion metric tons. So what happens is that when we have a rising cost of construction materials, this would discourage new investments into the real estate sector. I mean, most likely not say affordable housing anymore. If cement is going to as high as about 20,000, how much do you think a house will be going for? Houses are no longer going to be affordable. And this will also affect developers' profit margin too, because how would you want to invest in something that practically erodes all of your, how would you invest in something that the cost of that thing erodes all of your profits? So this will discourage new investments. And also we've seen like a hike in interest rates by the CBN, and that has also increased cost of borrowing. So once it happens, this also has made, or this will make financing of housing projects and mortgages very, very expensive. And it's also discourage developers, discourage buyers, discourage investors from even taking loans to even build more affordable houses. And thereby also affects like the entire real estate sector in itself. So until building materials that are very, very affordable, most likely not see this gap being covered in the long term. So I think that what the federal government is trying to do, ensure that everybody's working hand in hand to ensure we can close this housing gap. Because if one side is not cooperating with the other, it may even become worse than what it is right now, because it's projected to increase in the near term or in the long term if things are not being put in place to ensure that affordable housing is a must for the Nigerian citizen. So hopefully we see that, or hopefully we expect that they'll come to a middle ground where both parties would agree on a decent price that will ensure building materials that are very, very much affordable for consumers or for
Right.
people to even build houses, basically.
That actually is very important because I can't even begin to imagine those who right now are trying to build houses maybe for themselves or for commercial purposes and so on and so forth. Even the developers you actually mentioned, because you talked about the profit margins, and then when they sit down and calculate all of these things, when cement is taking up such a huge chunk of this, and then add other building materials to the mix as well. And if you look out there right now, a lot of different houses are so expensive for those who are trying to get apartments, get homes, and everything. Even when this isn't directly involved in this, but of course they will tell you, those who own the homes will tell you that, oh, we need to renovate, and if there's an issue, we need to fix it. So we need to calculate this and so on and so forth. That is part of the huge issue that we have in terms of the housing sector. We'd love to get your thoughts on this. I mean, if you are a player within that space, let us know how you've been dealing with these particular issues. Come through and share your thoughts with us on WhatsApp on 0809 440 981. 0809 440 981. That is the WhatsApp number. And yeah, we'd love to hear from you. And of course, your thoughts. Even if you have some suggestions as well, hey, we're open to that. We're open to learning right here on the marketplace on Smooth 98.1, which will be back on the other side of this quick breather. Keep tuned. Don't go anywhere. Okay, quick break. I'll be back in about a minute or thereabouts. No, 2 minutes actually.
Okay.
This is Smooth 98.1. Love music, love life.
In a world where your health is your greatest asset, you can trust us to care for you and your loved ones. At Evercare Hospital, Lekki, we understand the importance of compassionate care and medical excellence. From routine checkups to specialized surgeries, our team of experienced doctors are dedicated to guiding you through every step of your health journey. At Evercare Hospital, Lekki, our state-of-the-art multi-specialty tertiary care facility delivers a wide range of services across core medical and surgical subspecialties. Experience compassionate care and cutting-edge treatment at Evercare Hospital, Lekki. Your health is our priority. Contact us today on 0813-985-0710, or you can visit evercare.ng to schedule your appointment. Evercare Hospital, Lekki, transforming healthcare in Nigeria. Nourishment is a goal. Nourishment is a goal.
To achieve great dreams, you need great nourishment. So never settle for less.
Quality nourishment you need so day and night.
With Dano Milk, you and your family get the right amount of protein, calcium, vitamins A, B, and D, and other essential nutrients that they need to go for it in business, school, and their dreams. So give your family the quality nutrients that they deserve. Choose Dano Milk and enjoy quality nutrition. No compromises.
Hey there! Yes, you just won 5,000 Naira cash. And you, sitting by the side, there's one more Showmax subscription to watch the Premier League waiting for you. You behind, of course, you're not left out. Plus 1,000 Naira airtime and 2,000 Naira Uber discount sound. All this could come true when you buy the No Unwrap and Win pack. Open it, look for a cube with a 6-digit code on its wrapper. Text the code to 8011 and follow the prompts to stand a chance to win any of these instant prizes. Promo valid from July till December. Terms and conditions apply. Get extra value on the No Unwrap and Win pack. No, eat for good.
Accessible.
All right, we're back in 10 seconds. Welcome back to the marketplace right here on Smooth 98.1. Love music, love life. This is the Smooth Drive. My name is Ayokunmi Kikiriak. Great to be with you on a Money Making Monday evening. We're talking about the outlook on Nigeria's industrial goods sector. And my guest still with me having this conversation, sharing all this knowledge, is Abigail Alabi. She's a sub-Saharan Africa industrial goods analyst with Vetiva Capital Management. And this conversation is more or less off the back of a report that Vetiva Capital Management Limited actually did, covering the industrial goods sector for the second half of 2024. Once again, you can be a part of the conversation this evening by sending your thoughts in on WhatsApp on 0809 440 981. 0809 440 981. That is the WhatsApp number. If you'd love to join the live stream on YouTube, you can do that at Smooth 981 FM Lagos. All right, come on, come on. We'd love to have your thoughts. Okay, welcome back to the show, Abigail. Before we jump back into the conversation, I'm going to take a message from WhatsApp, and this is from Sir James. And it says, please, the federal government needs to make more efforts in reducing buying cost of cement. I started a project with cement at 4,200, but yesterday I asked my supplier and she said it's now 8,200. And he says in brackets, in Yoruba, but I'll translate, he says he was surprised, but he had to continue his project with his hand on his heart. If the government doesn't come in, trust me, we'll have more substandard buildings in the nearest future, which will lead to loss of property, lives, and investment as well. Let me see here. Okay. All right. Thank you for that message, Sir James. Okay. So, Abigail, do you want to comment on that before we get along on the conversation?
I mean, really and truly, the rising cost of building material just goes beyond affordability. It goes as far as durability of those buildings too, because most people want to try and cut costs to be able to maximize profit. So in a business, you minimize costs to maximize profit. But now they have to severely or seriously minimize costs not to maximize profit. And in trying to minimize this cost, they'll rather go for the cheaper ones they're not as durable as the more expensive ones, as the ones that major players are producing. So truly, I mean, the federal government has been making efforts, and we expect that there will be an update from both parties by the end of this month or by the end of this week, rather. And both parties are trying to ensure that the affordability of cement is very, very paramount. I mean, on the part of the cement players, they're also trying to minimize the cost of production to be able to ensure that they create a balance between rising input costs and also affordability of cement and also their profitability. So it's like a delicate balancing act for
Mm,
cement players and also the federal government at this point, because they're trying to also ensure it's affordable, at the same time ensure they're also maintaining profitability, at the same time also trying to minimize this rising input cost at the same time. So it can be a bit overwhelming for these players at the same time. And also it
mm,
can also be very, very daunting for the federal government. They're trying to minimize or trying to intervene in any way they can, but it also just falls to people to them coming to a middle ground to be able to look at what they can do or ways they can have like a synergy or be able to coordinate their efforts to ensure that the end users is not feeling the brunt of these economic challenges we're currently having right now. So I mean, we are hoping for the best at the end of the day.
we're hoping for the best at the end of the day. Now, that is one major balancing act. I don't think an octopus has enough arms to balance everything that you mentioned right there, because man, that seems to be quite a bit. But still talking about cement and the cement sector. Now, can you speak to currency depreciation and how that has impacted the input cost of the cement players out there?
Okay, so I mean, like you said, currency depreciation has been a significant challenge for the Nigerian economy, including the industrial goods sector, especially for the cement industry. And for cement players, the impact of this FX crisis has been very, very significant on their input cost. And many or most of their raw materials and equipment that are used in producing cement are imported or they are FX linked. So, and
Okay.
the continuous weakening of the currency against the USD or reference currencies has led to increased production costs. So, for instance, the price of inputs like gypsum, imported coal, spare parts, equipment, even gas and other inputs are linked to the FX. And due to these FX issues, they have to source FX from the expensive parallel market, because I mean, they have to source for these currencies in the expensive parallel market. And this also puts increased pressure on cost and also affected their profit margin. So what is the partner trying to do is that, or what the cement partner trying to do is that, in order to minimize the impact of this currency depreciation, they are looking towards locally sourced raw materials, are looking towards locally sourced energy sources. So we are seeing Dangote Cements coming up with alternative fuel projects. We are seeing Lafarge also tilt towards industrial waste, biomass. It's also feed into all the acts as a feedstock for cement production. Also seeing
Mm,
Cement also trying to toe in the line of reducing its dependence on heavy fuels and also trying to, in a way, minimize the impact of FX fluctuation or FX liquidity crisis on production costs. So, I mean,
right.
over time, we have seen lots of progress in this, but I mean, we still have a long way to go to ensure that this is something that can be scaled across all operations or across all cement plants for this player. So I mean, currency depreciation is one thing, but at the same time, these players are also trying to, in a way, try and they're making really, really concerted efforts to minimize the impact of this crisis on their cost of production, also on their margins.
All right. Let me take a couple of more messages before we, leave cement and move on to the real estate sector. So Benito says the rising cost of items in Nigeria, plus the unending meager palliatives and handouts by the government, has turned some Nigerians into refugees in their own country. Now, the government should do better with the manufacturing and other sectors as well. Thank you for sharing your thoughts, Benito. Sir James says the government can subsidize for the manufacturers by cutting the taxes. It will go a long way. Do you agree with that, Abigail?
Um, I mean, so the thing is, cement players enjoy what they call pioneer tax or pioneer tax incentive. So once they have like a new plant, they have like, or once they extend some of their plants, they have like a pioneer tax that they do not have to pay tax for a certain period of time based on the fact they just had
Okay.
like just extended a new plant. So they just constructed a new cement plant. So I mean, there have been incentives here and there for cement players. We have seen tax incentives for them, but over time, tax incentive may not really, it may not go a long way to reducing the cost. So the major issue is the cost aspect for them. Once and again, that was one of the things they gave to the federal government as a condition for reduction in cement prices. How can the federal government come in? So most of the time, they also have to factor in what they call transportation cost, because from the factory to the end users, they also have to factor in the transportation cost that's involved in that. And because we have a very, very poor or a bad road network, it makes distribution very, very expensive. So we've seen across the industry what we call haulage expenses has significantly increased for Dangote Cement, Lafarge, for many cement players overall. We've seen haulage expenses significantly increase because, I mean, road networks are bad. They have to find a way to get
Right.
cement from the factory to the end user. So that's factoring all of this as well. So, I mean, gas as well, they have to ensure that there's a steady supply of gas, because over the last few years, we have seen that the cement industry has been dealing with recurrent gas supply disruption, and that also affects them in a long way. And also, we don't have enough gas, that we don't even produce enough gas yet to really ensure that they have like a steady supply. So ultimately, they have to go and source some of these the raw materials outside the country because they don't have enough in the domestic market to even totally or satisfy the plans that they have right now. So, I mean, they've given their conditions to the federal government. I believe the federal government is also working to also meet them in the middle to ensure that they satisfy the conditions of the players, and also the players also satisfy the condition of the federal government. So I think they have to just work hand in hand, minimize costs. So tax is not is just a way to ease this or give like a respite to the current situation, but it's not the only thing that would work. There are other factors that are influencing this whole situation right now.
Mm. All right, all right. So looking ahead, I mean, public sector, construction, cement, real estate, and so on and so forth. How will the industrial sector in Nigeria perform in the second half of 2024? How is it looking?
Okay. So for the construction sector, like I said, the first half of the year was quite weak, but we expect a rebound in the second half of the year, as we expect that this sector will significantly benefit from the federal government's renewed focus on infrastructure development. And this is primarily driven by significant funding initiatives that are aimed at driving construction industry. We have seen the infrastructure fund by the federal government. We have seen the renewed hope infrastructure fund. Also, by this same administration trying to drive or trying to facilitate construction activities or infrastructure projects across the country. And for the
Okay.
real estate sector, so we expect that steady or gradual or increased private sector activity would drive growth in that sector, and particularly in the residential and commercial real estate. So we expect that activity on that space will drive the growth throughout the remainder of the year. And for the cement industry, so given the fact that the government is currently intervening in pricing, like I said, we expect that cement plants will continue to strive or will continue to prioritize trying to find the balance between input costs, pricing, and also profitability second half of the year. So I mean that's
Mm.
basically what we expect to happen in the second half of the year for all these three subsectors.
All right, well said, Abigail. Well said. Okay, so as we get to the finish line of this conversation, because time absolutely flies by when you're having so much fun. Today isn't any different. Now, your report looks at some stocks in the sector. So, if you can just give us a run through of what it's looking like. I mean, what's the outlook on Lafarge Africa PLC, on Julius Berger Nigeria PLC, and on Dangote Cement PLC as well?
Okay, so for the cement industry, I'm really optimistic about cement volumes. And like I said, this is going to be driven by rebounds in construction activities in the public and in the private sector. So, and again, I said that this current administration is currently focusing on infrastructure development, and this is expected to support demand throughout the year. And also, we also expect that pricing also come into play in the cement industry too. So we expect
Okay.
that cement prices will increase throughout the year, but it might be at a slower pace because of this federal government intervention to, in a way, curb or rein in the increasing prices that we saw in Q1. So we expect that this will also come into play. So volumes and pricing will come into play to drive revenue growth or drive impressive performance for the cement industry. And for Dangote Cement, I mean, for their Pan-African segments, they have been delivering or they've been recording like impressive performance since the beginning of the year. So we expect this to continue again throughout the remainder of the year. And this is supported by strong demand and also higher pricing in the Pan-African countries like Congo and Zambia. And we also expect steady volumes from Senegal, Ethiopia, and also Cameroon. And for Julius Berger, I mean, the first quarter of the year was quite shaky for them because we saw like a decline in the construction sector. But for the second half of the year, we expect a rebound. And like I said, this is also
Okay.
due to the increased focus of the federal government that is targeting like an improved or an increased infrastructure projects. And that will also, in a way, or that will definitely drive or strengthen the outlook that we have for Julius Berger. That will definitely improve the performance that we are going to see for Julius Berger in the second half of the year. So basically, all three sectors, we are very optimistic about Dante Cement, Lafarge, and also Julius Berger in the second half of the year.
All right. Our fingers are crossed that things actually will work out for the best of for the best for these industries and by extension for Nigerians as well. I'm going to run up with a message from Benito who says the major input cost additives to the cement industry are inclusive of energy cost, rising cost of diesel, which is used, and the heavy industry production of cement and distribution, plus the cost of gypsum, gas, FX, the prices for imports, and so on and so forth. Well, thank you, Benito, for sharing your thoughts. And also, very big thank you to our very special guest, Abigail Alabi, the Sub-Saharan Africa Industrial Goods Analyst with Vetiva Capital Management Limited. It's been a pleasure having you on the marketplace this evening.
Thank you for having me. Thank you very much.
All right, do have yourself a great evening.
And you
All right,
too.
thank you to all our wonderful listeners out there and for those who sent messages in as well. Thank you for being a part of the marketplace. We do this every Monday at 5:15 p.m. right here on Smooth 98.1. Meanwhile, stick around the Smooth Drive with me, Ayokunmi Kikirek, and we'll continue as we get along to the 6 o'clock hour.